Chair, you're muted.
I apologize for that technical problem. Once again, welcome to the first meeting of Newark Supplemental Zoning Board of Adjustment. Today's date is Thursday, August 1st, 2024. The purpose of this meeting is to hear requests for variances from the Newark zoning and land use regulations under the authority of the municipal land use law. If you're an applicant for a D or use variance, you should be aware that such a variance can only be granted after showing that special reasons for the grant of the variance exist and that the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the zoning plan of the city of Newark. You should also be aware that in order to be granted such a variance, you require an affirmative vote of 5 members of the 7-member Board of Adjustment. Other variances require a majority of 4 votes to grant the variance. If you're an applicant for any variance and your variance is denied by this board, you have a right to appeal to the Superior Court of the State of New Jersey within 45 days of notice of the decision, and that court may overturn the decision of this board. If you're an objector to any type of variance and the variance is granted, you too may appeal to the Superior Court of the State of New Jersey within 45 days of the decision of this board. If you do file an appeal, I ask that you provide a copy of your complaint with all supporting documentation to the zoning board secretary, who will ensure that it is provided to council. Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, also known as the Sunshine Law, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by notifying the Star Ledger, the Jersey Journal, the Newark City Clerk, and posting a copy of the agenda on the bulletin board in the basement of Newark City Hall. In addition to notice on the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this remote public meeting, as permitted by statute, was placed on the City of Newark's website. Members of the public may notify the host that you would like to ask questions or make a statement by using the raised hand feature at the bottom of the computer screen or your mobile device. If you are calling in from your phone, if you dial *9 on your telephone, that will advise us that you would like to ask a question or make a statement. We will, the chair will advise you when the appropriate time is to make a statement or ask a question. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board, and if an appeal is taken, we're required to provide the Superior Court with an official transcript. The chat is not part of the official transcript. So we want to make sure that your questions, the answers to your questions, and your statements are made part of the official transcript. So I'd ask that you refrain from using the chat. In addition, the chat is disruptive because when you use the chat, it pops up on the screen. It's the same as if you were to speak out loud, out of turn, if we were meeting in person. So for those 2 reasons, I'd ask that you refrain from using the chat. The meeting of the Board of Adjustment will now come to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Coombs Hollis,
I'm here.
Commissioner Santiago, you're muted.
Commissioner Santiago, you are muted.
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Sobrero,
Here.
Commissioner Pichardo, Commissioner Hurd, Ms. Hurd,
Commissioner Hurd, can you hear us?
Commissioner Hurd, can you hear us? I think she might be having some audio issues, Chair. Commissioner Greer Hines,
Present.
Commissioner Childs,
Here.
Commissioner Hurd, are you able to hear us?
Unknown caller.
You're muted, Commissioner Hurd.
Okay. I'm present.
Great, thank you. So welcome, everyone. As I said, this is the first meeting of this Newark Supplemental Board of Adjustment. I want to welcome all the
Ms.
commissioners.
Maheda, you're muted.
I want to welcome all the commissioners and I'm glad to see Commissioner Combs Hollis here. She was a member of our board and along with the rest of you, you'll be in good hands. The city will be in good hands with your decisions that you make on this board. Tonight, what I thought I would do is I'd open the meeting. And I want to open nominations for the board chair. What I plan to do is I'll open nominations. Nominations will be closed. Ms. Mejia will call the roll. You'll vote for yes or no for whatever candidate or the name of the candidate you want to vote for. As soon as the chair is elected, I will hand the meeting over to the chair and happily leave you to the guidance of the new board chair. So again, welcome. We've been waiting a long time for this. And I'd like to now open the floor for nominations for chair of the supplemental board. Are there any nominations for chair?
Chair, are we just putting them in the chat or we just gonna nominate somebody?
Let's nominate out loud.
I would like to nominate Jackie Combe Hollis.
Okay, we have a nomination for Ms. Combs Hollis. Ms. Combs Hollis, will you accept?
Okay.
It took her a while. I understand. Are there any other nominations for chair? Other nominations for chair? Hearing none, I'm going to close the nominations. All in favor of, we could do this by mutual assent, I guess. All in favor of electing Ms. Combs Hollis to the chair of the supplemental board, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any votes against Ms. Combs Hollis as chair? So hearing none, Ms. Combs Hollis, congratulations, you've been nominated chair by assent. With that, I'll leave you to elect the vice chair. Good luck and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
So we'll open up for nominations for a vice chairperson. Is there one?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Kwame Childs.
Is there a second for Mr. Childs?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Childs, you'll accept that, we vote on that?
Yes, I accept.
Thank you. All in favor of Mr. Childs as our vice chairperson?
Aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. Thank you. So Ms. Mejia will call the first matter scheduled for this evening.
Okay, the time is now 6:27 PM. The first item on tonight's agenda is ZBA 24-04, located at 215 East Kinney Street, block 946, lot 15 in the East Ward. The applicant is Gita Paiva. In the R3 zone, the applicant proposes a 3-story mixed-use commercial/residential building with 1 commercial office and 3 units. Applicant is seeking a D3 variance to permit a low-rise mixed-use dwelling on an interior lot, and C variances for insufficient lot size, insufficient lot width, insufficient side yard setback, insufficient rear yard setback, exceeding maximum lot coverage by building, exceeding maximum impervious lot coverage, insufficient shade trees, and a variance to permit tandem parking for more than 2 vehicles. Site plan approval is required. This application was previously adjourned on June 27, 2024.
Thank you. The Board of Adjustment made the following findings of fact with respect to 215 East Kinney Street, which is located in Newark's Ironbound neighborhood on the southern side of East Kinney Street between Pacific and Jefferson Streets. The total site area is approximately 4,112 square feet. The surrounding land uses consist of primarily detached 3-family dwellings. Do we have the applicant here and the professionals?
Yes, Ms. Carrillo Perez.
Thank you. Ms. Perez, are your professionals here? I see a hand raised, Ms. McDonough.
Mr. McDonough, yes, I see Mr. Fernandez. Mr. McDonough is our other professional.
And we'll bring them in. Great, so your whole team is here, Ms. Perez. Did you want to start with your case? Before we do that, I just wanted to, for the members of the board to introduce the professionals that are here for the city. Mr. Hazel, who is a planner, Mr. Plata, who is our board attorney, Nana Juma, who is a zoning officer, and Sylvia Mejia, who is the board secretary. Thank you all. I don't see them on camera. Mr. Trafficante from the engineering department and AJ from water sewer. Ms. Carrillo, do you have copies of all the professional reports that were issued on this one?
Good evening. I am in receipt of 3 reports. A planner's report dated June 12th, 2024. Memorandum from the Department of Engineering dated May 21st, and the memorandum from the Department of Water and Sewer Utilities dated June 14th.
Thank you. And you're accepting all of the conditions listed in those reports, Ms. Perez?
We are, with the exception of just one clarification for the memorandum from the Department of Engineering with respect to the curb cut, which is specifically item, and I can direct your attention to that, under site plan, item 11.
Mr. Trafficante?
Yes.
So they've agreed to all the items except for item 11. And the curb cut?
All right, well, can they give justification? I mean, there's room to make it 12-foot wide. Why not? It's supposed
All
to
right,
be.
so we'll wait until the applicant put their, put the proofs on the record, and then we can address that.
All right.
Yeah.
Ms. Perez?
Sure, and just to clarify, we had no objection to that. The door we would remain the same, that we just wanted clarification. I don't think we have an issue with it. I think there's a meeting of the minds. I just wanted to clarify. That's all.
All right, thank you. Do we have any members of the public who are here in support of or in objection to this matter? You can raise your hand if you're here for that. Ms. Mejia, I see a hand in the raised room, Paula. And Ms. Elizabeth Salermo, you're in here in support of or an objection to? An objection to, Ms. Salermo?
An objection to, yes.
Okay. The hand raised in the weight room, Paula. Well, are you here in support of or an objection to the application that's listed now? You're muted, Ms. Paula.
Objective.
And what's your last name for the record?
Vega, V-E-G-A.
Thank you. So the applicant will put his case on. After each of the professionals have testified, you can ask questions specific to what they have testified to. At the end of their presentation, you can then put a statement on the record as to your objection. Is that clear?
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Ms. Perez, you can take it.
Thank you, and it's an honor to appear before the new board. So it's nice to see everyone here. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Carrillo Perez, and I'm a partner at Connell Foley. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Gaida Paiva, the owner of 215 East Kinney Street. This property currently consists of a one-story building that houses the Alexandra Paiva Construction, Inc. That construction company has operated in Newark for over 35 years and legally has operated their administrative offices at this location for over 15 years. The applicant is before you this evening for preliminary and final site plan approval and variance relief to rehabilitate the existing one-story building and to improve that with an addition of 2 stories above for strictly residential use. So here the applicant is looking to maintain their current operations at this location and add 3 specific residential units above via an addition. In connection thereto, as noted by the board secretary, we are seeking preliminary and final site plan approval as well as a D3 conditional use variance and C bulk variances for lot size, lot width, side yard setback, rear yard setback, impervious coverage, and transparency. Many of which are pre-existing conditions, and you will hear our professionals stipulate the same during the course of their testimony. Tonight, in support of the application, I have Mr. George Fernandez, who is our project architect, as well as Mr. John McDonough, who is our planner. Mr. Fernandez will be providing testimony with respect to the specifics of the project and will entertain any questions this board may have with the public as well. We also have a representative from the Paiva Construction Corporation. Should there be questions that arise to that operation, he's here and available, although I was not planning to call him on. As we noted on the record previously, Madam Chair, we did receive those 3 reports, and I believe we would be in agreement with all of the conditions. I'll just have Mr. Fernandez clarify to that one point. But our professionals are prepared to essentially comply with the requirements from the city. And the last item before I call our first witness is a matter of housekeeping. My office did submit an affidavit of notice dated July 22nd that was submitted to your board secretary, indicating that we have supplied all of the appropriate notice, both statutorily and via ordinance, to allow this application to proceed before you this evening and for you to have the jurisdiction to proceed. So with no objection there, I'd like to have my first witness sworn in, please. Mr. Fernandez.
I'm here.
All right, Chair, you want me to do it or?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. All right, Mr. Fernandez, do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Jorge Fernandez, Fernandes, registered architect, business address 75 Parkhurst Street, Newark, New Jersey.
Councilman, qualify your witness.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, can you please provide the board the benefit of your educational background?
Yes, I have a bachelor's in architecture from NJIT, and my architectural license in New Jersey is current and in effect.
And you've appeared before the city of Newark, both the zoning and planning board, and been accepted in the field of architecture, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to submit Mr. Fernandez, an expert, limiting his testimony, obviously to the plans prepared this evening.
Do we have any objections to Mr. Fernandez appearing as an architect? Seeing none, you may proceed, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez, you prepared the plans that were submitted as part of this application, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and if you can, via share screen, provide the board with an overview of the project that's being proposed, specifically beginning with the existing conditions and property location.
Okay, so we'll start with the site. Currently, this is a 4,112 square foot site, and it is currently occupied by a one-story masonry building. The entire site is occupied by this building, and it's currently being used, I believe, by the current owner as his office for his construction company. So what we are proposing to do is to essentially leave that existing one-story building and build 2 more stories on top of that. The existing first floor will remain as a entrance lobby for the upper floors. It'll house the trash bins and recycling bins, as well as a bicycle rack and 4 parking spaces. I will go into the A1 plan that shows the floor plan. Again, here's the mail and package entrance lobby where the tenants and the users will come in. And then you have a garage door. Currently, the garage door is 10 feet wide. And that is why we wouldn't be able to comply with the Department of Engineering's requirement of having it 12 feet, because we would have to cut into the masonry of the existing building. So we would ask for a waiver for the garage door width. However, we would be able to comply with the 12-foot curb cut requirement if the board finds that to be necessary.
So, Mr. Fernandez, just to be clear, we're utilizing the existing building that sits on a pre-existing lot that's 4,112 square feet, correct?
That is correct.
So the lot size is predetermined, and that's also a variance. Both the lot size and the lot width are a variance that we're seeking this evening, correct?
Correct.
And with respect to the item you noted in the engineering report, we have no objection to widening the curb cut to 12. However, we just do not want to cut into the masonry of the building to widen the doorway. But we are in agreement to widen the curb cut to 12 feet, correct?
That is correct.
And we have no other issues with complying with any of the conditions that were noted in his report, Mr. Traficante's report, correct?
Correct.
Okay, sorry, you can proceed.
So the first floor, like I said, is really just the parking area as well as the entrance for the upper floors. On the second floor, we'll have a office that's 1,176 square feet in the front. Now this is the going to be used as the construction company's office, where they have, I believe, only 2 staff members that work here full time, and the remainder is just the owner of the company that occasionally comes in after the day's work or before the beginning of the day's work, and pretty much those are will be the occupants of that office space in the front. Then in the rear, we have the 1,452 square foot 2-bedroom apartment. This apartment also has a patio, outdoor patio, that will be accessible through bedroom number 3 by a sliding door. The building will be set back 12'5" and 15'5" from the rear property line. This is an irregular shaped lot, and you'll have a very nice space, outdoor space for this second floor apartment. The apartment also has 3 bedrooms. One is 216 square feet, 193 square feet, and 161 square feet. 2 bathrooms, a mechanical room for a washer and dryer, and a kitchen and living space. We have some center stairs that give access to the 3rd floor, where we have 2 apartments. There are 3 bedroom, 1,452 square feet and 1,415 square feet. The larger being the one in the rear. So you have a 216 square foot bedroom, 193 square foot, and 161. They have 2 bathrooms and a mechanical space with the laundry, as well as kitchen and living area. So the front apartment is a 2-bedroom, 151 square feet and 200 square feet, and another bedroom at 181 square feet. Again, it has a mechanical room with laundry and a kitchen.
Mr. Fernandez, if we can, before you proceed to the next page, just go back to the first ground floor.
Yes.
You had indicated we have parking for 4 parallel parking spaces in the staircase. In this instance, only 2 tandem parking spaces are permitted, but the engineering department does not object to the request of that waiver. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And just with respect to the other usage of that area beyond the vehicle parking, can you just provide with a brief overview on what will be stored there, whether it will be trash, bicycle parking, etc.?
We'll have trash and bicycle parking. We'll also have some general storage for the maintenance of the building, some tools to clean snow and what have you. That can be stored towards the rear of the property. And the middle of the property will essentially be occupied by the parking spaces, and also the turning radius for the cars to be able to maneuver out.
And then in the front of the building, I think if you can just scroll down, that will be the area you had indicated, I believe, during your testimony for mail-in packages. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's fair to say that this floor will be utilized for parking, bicycle parking, mail-in package room. There will be an area you indicated for refuse and recycling, and then the additional space will be for the circulation of the vehicles. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then the second floor will be the office of the existing operator, which is the administrative office for the construction company. And then the rear of the property you indicated is the 3-bedroom unit, and the access to the back patio would be through which bedroom? I apologize, just for clarity.
From bedroom number 3.
Okay, and all of the units will have the mechanical room and laundry facilities. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and the 3rd floor just has the 2 3-bedroom units as you just walked us through. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the floor plans. We have here the elevations. The front elevation, we have brick masonry. We have the garage door that is currently a roll-down gate. It will be replaced with a aluminum and glass garage door. We're going to have a Juliet balcony for the 3rd floor apartment out of the living space. Very large windows. We are complying with the glazing requirements in terms of the frontage of this building. We are also proposing a sign, which the code says that it should not be larger than 50 square feet or 10% of the elevation. In this case, 10% would be around 78 square feet. So we'll provide a sign that is 50 square feet and the letters 1 foot high with the name of the construction company, Paiva Construction. And I believe that's compliant with the, and this sign, of course, will not be illuminated. You would just be flat plate letters. And I believe that complies with the city zoning regulations for signage. The side elevations, we have some variances that are required in terms of glazing because this building is on the property line on both sides. We have set back the building at certain areas to provide windows. However, due to stairs and other features of the building, we weren't able to comply with the glazing requirements on the sides. On the left side, we aren't able to have any windows at all because it is all on the property line. And then on the right side, we did pop out some windows, but it's still shy of the glazing requirement for the sides. In the rear,
And if we can, just with respect to the sides, I apologize, Mr. Fernandez, you indicated we cannot satisfy that just by virtue of the building's existing location. We're just building on top. So by virtue of the existing placement, we are unable to provide those additional, that percentage with respect to glazing, correct? On the right side elevation? Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So that's pretty much my testimony in terms of the architecture. I believe I do have to address the engineering,
Yes.
engineer's report for site plan comment number 13. No, I'm sorry, comment number 12 for the tree. Essentially, we can plant a street tree in front of this building, even with the 12-foot curb cut. The width of the sidewalk in front of this property is 10 feet. So I believe the tree pit is 4 by 8 as required. Therefore, we will have enough space to pass through the area of the tree, more than 5 feet at that. And we will be able to plant whatever tree the city arborist decides will be fitting for this neighborhood and for this area of the city.
Thank you so much. And just to clarify, the design and the specifications with respect to the unit sizes and the bedroom sizes are all in compliance with the city ordinances and the state codes. Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
I have no additional testimony as it relates to the architectural planners report or the engineering report.
All right, Mr. Trafficante,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Platter,
Yes. Mr. Trafficante, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
My name is Charles Trafficante, T-R-A-F as in Frank, I-C-A-N-T-E. I am a principal engineer and a professional engineer. I'm in the employment of the City of Newark Department of Engineering. My license is active and in good standing with the State Board. Mr. Fernandez. The engineer's report to the board dated May 21st under item number 1, general, Roman numeral 3. Survey shows an existing roof gutter system along the edge of the existing roof that is located within the adjoining lot 17 to the east, which encroaches into subject lot 15 by as much as 0.6 feet. Applicant property owner of subject lot 15 shall provide testimony to the board as to what approvals easements exist within subject lot 15 for the benefit of adjoining lot 17 to allow for its existing roof gutter encroachment. Should no approvals exist, engineering department recommends to the board the applicant property owner be required to provide additional testimony to the board as to the future disposition of this existing roof gutter encroachment should the board approve this application. Can you address that?
Yes. So there is an existing gutter from the neighboring building that is over into our property. And with the construction of our building on the second floor and third floor, it will cause an obstruction, but we will work with the neighbor to rectify the situation. There are other gutter designs that we can use that will keep the roof from being roof draining to away from both properties.
Second question. Your elevation, front elevation shows, I believe, a Juliet balcony as well as two canopies that extend beyond the front of the building. Do any of those encroach into the public right of way?
I believe only the canopy.
And do you expect to get approvals from the city? Otherwise, remove the encroachment?
We can remove the encroachment.
Okay, so nothing will encroach into the public right of way
Correct.
as far as balconies, canopies.
Correct.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trafficante. Any members of the board have questions for the architect related to his testimony? Questions for the architect?
Sorry, Chair. My only question and my concern was a little more explanation
That
on
is-
terms. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is a little more explanation on the gutter situation, the drainage. So I know Mr. Trafficante asked and they said they would work with it, but I guess I'd like a little more understanding of what the issue is and how they plan on working with it.
Sure. I believe the crux of the issue, and I'll ask Mr. Fernandez, I'll defer to him. Their system is encroaching on our property. So, and there is no legal agreement. So his note was asking for clarification. And so we have to work with them on their encroachment onto our property. And Mr. Fernandez, at this point, what we can represent, and I'll defer to him, is that we can work with the neighbor to develop a system to remove that encroachment. So Mr. Fernandez, can you just explain briefly what we're looking at with respect to that?
Yes. So all I have is the site plan that I could point to. I believe the property in question is to the right of the existing site, the two-story frame dwelling. And their gutter, it has a gabled roof that slopes to either side of the house. And the gutter currently is essentially over our roof. When
Mr.
our
I think it's the other property. I apologize, just for clarification.
It's the property on lot
17.
Okay, it's essentially the same
Okay.
issue. It says here the gutter. The gutter is going over our roof, and once our building comes up, that gutter will no longer be able to be there. Therefore, we will have to work with the neighbor, of course, to install a gutter, what's called a Yankee gutter, on their existing roof to drive the water towards the rear of the property into whatever their rainwater is going into. That's a practice that happens a lot in urban environments where buildings are built to the property line. It involves creating a flashing in our building wall and the Yankee gutter on their roof to prevent any water from either going back into our building or into his roof. And that's how we plan to address that situation.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Fernandez from the board? Mr. Fernandez, I do have a few questions for you. Can you go back to the ground floor? Just talk a little bit about the pedestrian access to the parking spaces and getting up to the apartments, location of the bike racks. Talk a little bit too about the circulation from the parked vehicles, say vehicle number 2 exiting the garage. So where would be the bike racks and do you have markings on the pavement for pedestrian access to those vehicles?
So, your question was about vehicle number 2?
Yeah, circulation.
Yes. Vehicle number 2, essentially would be able to drive to the end of the building and be able to, form a K-turn and go back towards the garage door in the front. We can absolutely have markings on the, adjacent to the parking spaces to walk, essentially serve as a crosswalk from the parking spaces to the door, that gives access to the stairs. The building trash area and bike rack will be placed behind these stairs here. These are straight stairs that go all the way up to the second floor, so there will be room under the stairs as well as after the stairs to have the trash, because this is 4 feet, so a trash can is essentially 28, 30 inches. So we will be able to line our trash cans here. And of course, there's the garage door, and as is practice when buildings are up on the property line, we will have a safety warning mechanism that warns pedestrians when vehicles are moving in or out of the garage door. We could also install mirrors so that when somebody's heading out of the garage door, they'll be able to see pedestrians walking on either side of the sidewalk. And of course, the garage will be adequately lit and do very good visibility for both the whoever's driving or walking in this space.
Thank you. I have another question for you. I'll wait for the members of the public. If you have questions for the testimony presented by Mr. Fernandez, you can raise your hand at this time. Ms. Salerno, can you name and address for the record, please?
My name is Elizabeth Salerno. I'm the homeowner at 243 East Kenny Street, Newark, New Jersey, 07105.
Thank you. Your questions for the architect.
Yes, thank you for inviting us. I didn't receive a letter to this meeting. I was able to be told by Paula, who's also here today. I've been on this block for almost 10 years, and I'm aware that the Paivas actually have at least 3 commercial vehicles that are parked within that headquarters, and that's used daily. So my first question would be, are they no longer storing their commercial vehicles or parking their commercial vehicles in that building to then allow these three-bedroom apartments to have only 4 parking spaces for 3-bedroom apartments? I'm extremely concerned about the parking on my block. It's already extremely tight. And as I've stated, I lived here already for 10 years. Most people have several different vehicles.
I'm sorry, just questions for the architect, just questions. We'll save your comments for later. So just first.
Okay, so my question is, will they no longer be parking their commercial vehicles in the bottom of their headquarters?
Mr. Fernandez?
I will let the applicant answer that or the attorney.
So I can make the representation that we are required 3 parking spaces, 1 for each of the residential units. The 4th parking space will be for one of our employees. They do have a separate yard, so none of their commercial vehicles will be at this location once it's converted, should the board be inclined to grant the approval. So that is correct.
Okay, that is my biggest concern, is parking on this street.
Yeah, we do not have a parking variance. We actually are providing the parking for those residents for the units.
And Ms. Carrillo, that would be if each of those residents only have one car per residence, just something to note.
We understand. We just are obligated to follow the city ordinance, and that is what this project complies with. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Salerno?
No, that was it.
Thank you. Paula? Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Paula Vega, and I live at 229 East Kenny. and I've been a resident here for over 25 years.
You have questions for the architect?
Yes, it's similar to to my friend who lives down the block from me. Yes, I understand she's probably asked the same questions, but my concern is that they do have construction vehicles. They have multiple construction vehicles that go in and out of there, plus the tenant's car that's going to be in there, plus the opening of the
Sorry, questions
doorway.
only. Ms. Vega, I'm sorry. Questions only for this witness. You can save the statements for later. We're just taking questions now.
All right, well, the question was the same thing that she had, that you guys were gonna have construction workers coming in and out of there. Therefore, they leave their cars parked on our block and we do not have parking space.
Your question.
That's the concern. The concern is the parking space.
So, question, Ms. Vega, is that will commercial vehicles be parked in the same location as it is?
Correct, correct. It's the
And
same question.
Thank you, and that question was answered. Any other questions, Ms. Vega?
Nothing, only the concern of the parking, that's all.
Or you can put that statement on later. We're just taking questions for the architect at this.
Okay, no
All right,
problem.
thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have questions for the architect? Seeing none, Ms. Perez?
I'd like to call our next witness, Mr. John McDonough, who's our planner.
Thank you. Mr. Platter, can you swear him in?
Yes, Mr. McDonough, do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Sure. Hi there, everyone. My name is John McDonough. My name is spelled MC, capital DONOUGH, and my affiliation is the project plan.
Counsel, you may qualify your witness.
Mr. McDonough, can you please provide the board the benefit of your educational background, please, and the status of your license?
Sure. My license is current and in good standing. I have a license on the New Jersey level and also a certification on the national level as well under AICP. Both are current and in good standing. And I am also, my education comes from Rutgers.
And your license is current and you've appeared before this board as well as the Central Planning Board in the past and been accepted as a planner, is that correct?
Well, I'll say I've appeared before the zoning board. This is my first time in front of the supplemental board.
Yeah, all of us, right? So yeah, I'd like to submit Mr. McDonough as a professional planner.
Thank you. Any objections to Mr. McDonough? Thank you. You may proceed.
Great. Mr. McDonough, you reviewed the plans, the application, and heard the testimony that was presented this evening with respect to this application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you had an opportunity to review the city ordinances with respect to this particular zone and are familiar with the area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if you can give your analysis with respect to the variance relief that's being sought, specifically the D3 conditional use, as well as the bulk variances noted.
So for the benefit of the new members, we have fresh zoning here in the city of Newark that came to fruition at the end of 2023. And this particular zoning district is known as your R3 zone district. You have several layers of residential zone districts here. This is the R3 zone district. And your zoning is structured based both on use or activity and form, the way the buildings look, the mass and scale. It's sort of a hybrid of what we call a form-based code. And what's interesting about this application is the building form, the building type, the exact building. If the applicant were to take that fourth unit and make it a residential use, if you have 4 residential uses here as opposed to 3 residential uses and 1 commercial unit, this would be a building that is fully permitted from a D variance standpoint. There'd be no D relief, and it would actually not be in front of the jurisdiction of a zoning board, but will be over with the planning board. So I'm just trying to establish that the mass and scale of the building in terms of the neighborhood impact is on par with what might be contemplated under a zone scheme in the R3 zone in front of the planning board as a 4-family dwelling. So the real crux of the question here is that commercial unit, and whether it's appropriate and meets the statutory criteria. The practical side to that is it's a relatively small unit. It's about 1,100 square feet. Your parking regulations for commercial uses in the R3 don't kick in until it's 2,500 square feet. So technically, I know the neighborhood is concerned with parking, and I think you've heard on the practical side that the intent of this application is to de-intensify the parking impact of the commercial use. But from a zoning standpoint, there's actually no parking requirement related to a commercial use less than 2,500 square feet. All of that said, we're going to look at, bear with me one sec. We're going to look at the zoning criteria in the R3 zone district. A low-rise residential building that's in the form of mixed use is a permitted use in the zone. It's not what we would call a D1 use variance or a use that's wholly prohibited. It's a use permitted subject to conditions. And Mr. Hazel in his report, as always, has given the board a good roadmap here, good guidance on the criteria and the things the board should think about. There are 4 criteria for a low-rise building in the R3 zone district. The applicant doesn't comply with all of them. That's why we're here. The first is that a multi-dwelling unit needs to be located on a corner lot. This is not a corner lot. It's one lot removed from the corner, but it is on the edge of a zone, what we call one of your C zone districts, where commercial mixed use would be allowed. And it could be an 8-story building. So while we're not on a corner per se, we are on the corner of a zone where there's a turnover. Second requirement for a multifamily low-rise building in the R3 is a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet shall be provided. And this is short of that at approximately 4,000 square feet and change. So it doesn't hit that 5,000 square foot mark, 4,112 square feet. Third requirement is that a minimum of 500 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit shall be provided. That is met here. So in effect, the applicant is not asking for density relief. Again, as I said, a 4-family dwelling is a permitted use in the zone. This is a 3-unit development plus 1 commercial development. And then finally, the last criteria for a low-rise building in the R3 zone is that ground floor commercial uses are permitted provided conditions 1 and 2 above are met, which I just said they're not. That we're not a corner lot, and then we're not 5,000 square feet. So that's why we're in front of the board here, is that not all of the criteria for mixed use are met. As I said, from a planning standpoint, we always look at the degree of departure from the actual zone scheme. From a pure form standpoint, yes, we could have 4 dwelling units here, and we're going to de-intensify that commercial use and basically have the same building type. No relief related to the height, no relief related to the density, no relief related to the parking here. There is some dimensional relief related to setbacks and whatnot, but that's because we're raising up a building and working on top of a footprint that's already there. So we always weigh our applications as you would any decision in life, the pros and the cons, what we call the positive criteria and the negative criteria. And we sort of balance the two. In terms of the positive criteria, we believe that this project will promote the general welfare. And again, we're isolating the focus on that commercial unit, relatively small scale, a stipulation that there'll be only 2 employees in there. It's sort of back office space to provide for the administrative functions of the contractor use, which is actually going to be offsite. You heard the contractor yard is offsite, and the nuts and bolts of that operation are moving away from this particular site. This is actually going to bring the site more in line with the zoning criteria or the zone intent, which is a residential zone district. Likewise, this will promote the planning goal for efficient use of land. This is reuse, repurposing of that which is already there, not wholesale new construction. Next, we're looking at the planning goal to promote a desirable visual environment. Again, this is going to be an attractive building, as you saw through Mr. Fernandez's testimony. It's going to modernize that which is there. You now have a roll-up gate, which is going to be improved in terms of the garage configuration. And then finally, purpose G, which is a planning goal to provide for a variety of uses in appropriate locations. This is going to deliver new housing stock. The housing component is allowed in the zone. The only relief is really related to having that small space as commercial instead of residential. Counterbalancing that, we always look at potential negative impacts on the neighborhood. There's not going to be a parking impact here. There's not going to be relief related to the bulk. And from a pure activity or intensity of use standpoint, relatively minor, not triggering any parking relief. So that's the balancing that the board needs to consider. We look at the application holistically. We look at those positives outweighing the negatives. We believe that the statutory tests are met. So again, it's not a question of whether the use itself is permitted here or not. The use is, it's subject to conditional use standards, and those standards are not met on this site. So those are the things that the board should consider, whether having this commercial use here would cause impacts of a substantially adverse nature or impair the intent and purposes of the zone plan and ordinance. From a planning standpoint, I don't believe they will. And also, just to give the board some context here, we're going to drop on the screen the transforming nature of the neighborhood. This building that you see in this particular photograph here.
Mr. McDonough, Mr. McDonough, I don't mean to cut you off. Just new board and procedure. We're providing an exhibit here. I'd like to mark it as A1.
So A1 for the record is a photograph that we took actually yesterday, July 31st, about 12:30 in the afternoon. And you can see there's new construction in the area, similar to what's proposed. We've got a ground floor. We've got 2 floors above that. So the mass and scale is not going to be out of character with that which is happening on the street. The subject lot is 1 lot removed. It's not this structure that you see to the left, but it's 1 more to the left of that. So again, it is a transforming neighborhood that is consistent with good planning. And again, we're not really looking for relief for the mass and scale per se, for the density, for the intensity, but more or less for that particular use aspect. With that, I'll pause here. I believe the tests are met. The applicant has met its burden under the law, and approval is warranted, but I'll certainly open up to any redirect or questions from the board or public.
If I can, Mr. McDonough, just to clarify, we're here, as you indicated, not for massing or size, but because of the D3, and that relates to, you indicated, the commercial space, correct?
Yes.
And
it's
that
only
commercial
space.
Correct. And that commercial space has been operating at this facility at this location, as we indicated previously, correct?
That's a good point that I failed to mention. This is a business that has been here. I think one of our interested parties, she was here for 10 years. I think she's lived side by side with this business because this business has been here as well. This is an established business with a commitment to the community. It wants to stay here. From a planning standpoint, one of the fundamentals of economic development is not only business attraction, but business retention. This is going to keep what's there from a, I'll say, de-intensified standpoint in terms of the neighborhood impact, and move the yard operations to the yard.
All right. And so the impact is really de minimis because the operation with respect to the commercial unit has been there for approximately 15 years. Would that be your recommendation, your opinion?
This use is already part of the neighborhood. I think the improvements that are being proposed will also move the needle closer to a betterment with the neighborhood, better integration with the neighborhood.
And that's because the neighborhood, we would be adding residential, is that correct?
We'd be adding residential and, in my view, de-intensifying the nature of the commercial use, which I'm hearing that there's some vehicles down there and potential storage down there, which is not the proposed case.
And so your opinion is that this project will bring us closer in line and that it will not impact negatively the neighborhood, but actually help to improve it, to bring it closer to the intent of the zoning, correct?
That's what we try to do from a planning standpoint with all our applications, yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. Do we have any questions for the planner about his testimony from the board? Ms. Juma, I see your hand raised.
Good evening, Nana Juma, zoning officer. I do have a question for the planner. Well, 2 questions. You mentioned, you showed us an exhibit. In the exhibit that you showed, there were no street addresses or parcel number is shown, was there? Just so that I'm.
No, I could do a quick lookup to get an address for that, but I will tell you, if you're looking at the building, the subject site, this would be 2 lots over.
That's
To the
specific,
right, to the right.
that specific street is, that where.
It's on the corner of East Kinney and Pacific.
Right, and you mentioned, well, the picture shows that it's a corner lot, which that building type and use, if it is mixed, would be conditionally permitted. But to my original question, you mentioned at the beginning of your testimony that, well, I believe you mentioned that the building type is permitted. Did I hear you say that?
Where I was going with it, and maybe I misspoke, but a 4-family dwelling is a permitted building type in the zone. And so if that one unit, maybe I shouldn't have said is a permitted building type, but is akin to a permitted building type. If that one unit were created to residential, this would be a building type of 4-family dwelling in the R3 zone. It would be the same exact volume, the same exact building. We just have a residential use in that one space. So that's the degree of departure that we're talking about from the zone scheme. So toward Ms. Chuma's question, I'll stand corrected if I misled the board that it's a permitted building type. It's akin to a permitted building type.
And that's because the existing use is the ground floor space is commercial currently, but in the proposal, you intend to remove the ground floor commercial space and have it strictly on the second floor. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Those were my only questions.
Any other questions from the board for the planner? Mr. McDonough, I do have a question for you. You heard the testimony of our architect, the architect, Mr. Fernandez.
Yes.
You saw the rendering that was presented to the board?
Yes.
All right. It is your testimony that the operation of the commercial space is you're gonna de-intensify that operation, correct?
Right. My understanding, and some of this comes in through the public, that there's some commercial vans down there now that can't be because they'll interfere with the residential use. And also perhaps elements, I'll say, related to the business, whether it's equipment or otherwise. There's a storage component there. I see the head nodding from the neighbor who knows better than me.
So I think I heard that your attorney saying that all the commercial vehicles will be moved off-site if this application were approved. Do you agree?
Correct. I don't think this applicant would want its residential tenants having interference with a commercial business.
Thank you. So question for you, Ms. McDonald. There is a sign presented on the front elevation of the building. Why have that sign that's prominently displaying a commercial construction company if the main use of this now converted building would be residential? If you're saying that in your testimony that the use of the building, the commercial piece is now, it's not as is relatively minor, why have that signage on the facade that more or less advertises the building and not the commercial?
The only thing I'll say, Madam Chair, is there's a sign out there now. It's been a part of that building for a while. We actually talked about this earlier. My understanding is the applicant would like to maintain its identity, either in the form of the existing sign, which has been established, or as Mr. Fernandez's plan shows, I think he shows the outline of a potential new sign, which would be in accordance with the city standards. He's not looking to get any relief for the sign itself.
I know you're not here for the signage, Mr. McDonough, but your testimony is that the commercial use is not as intensified as it is today. That is really just the residential piece, which is going to be added. But if you could put that, Mr. Fernandez, if you could put that elevation back on the screen for the board.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hollis, just to be clear, you're asking with respect to signage, and we've indicated what's being proposed is with compliance to the plan, but you just want greater detail on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
My question is that the testimony is that the commercial use is not as intense as it is today. However, the sign that's proposed, clearly it's saying a lot more than it's really advertising the commercial use.
I don't, and Mr. McDonough, perhaps you can provide in further clarifying the testimony. I'm not sure if you can just clarify the square footage that's being proposed with respect to the office space is similar to what is operating today at that facility. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, yes.
So while it is not necessarily lessening, it's practically staying the same. We are simply adding residential units to it. And by virtue of adding that, you're less intensifying the building because the building is commercial in an area that was historic, that's zoned residential. Was that your intent? Can you provide clarification and testimony with respect to that? Just because I want to be clear, in that, since we're not seeking a variance, just for clarification here for the Madam Chair, I want to make sure we're operating off of the same kind of language.
The short answer is yes, this is going to be a predominantly residential building. It is not a pure residential building, but clearly spatially, the dominant land use in this building is going to be residential, spatially.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. Any members of the board have questions for the planner?
So the sign is for purely historical purposes?
Ms. Hurd, Commissioner Hurd.
Good evening.
Commissioner, good evening.
So the sign is predominantly for historical purposes?
It's actually for business identification purposes. It's a business that's there. The sign, there's been a sign there. To the extent they can put a newer sign up, the applicant, again, on that elevation that was just on the screen, shows what the confines of that sign would be. And if Ms. Juma were to find that is in violation of the ordinance, we'd have to come back in front of the board. The applicant has not asked me to ask for any relief related to the sign package, either retaining existing or a new one proposed.
I'm sorry. Good evening, Siobhan. So is there no name for the building? Like, because if you think about it, it's being converted from a commercial space now to more of a residential space, you would think that they would have the name the building versus a construction sign being on the building, or maybe something very, very small, being that it's been around for 10 plus years or 15 years. Your folks will know that the space is still there versus having that larger sign. It just looks now more so like, it's more like portraying as a construction company versus the residential use, in my opinion.
Commissioner, there may be a requirement that the address is predominant on there. I think that's more a building code than a zoning code issue or a fire code issue. But I don't know that the applicant has I'll say a name for the building per se, but the number will likely be prominent. The address.
Above the sign is going to be, the number of the building is going to be underneath the sign, or we're not sure? I'm sorry.
I honestly don't know, Commissioner. It may be over the front door. It may be on the top of the building. I think that's subject to where it's allowed to go. I honestly don't know.
If I can interrupt, and I apologize, Madam Chair, if we can have Mr. Fernandez just bring that up, I think we can, I understand your concern. I think we can address it. Mr. Fernandez, and then answer Commissioner Harris's question as well with where the address signage, right? Correct? Would be located, if that was your question, Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Okay. If we can just recall for the moment, just Mr. Fernandez for purposes of identification, if that's okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fernandez, with respect to the address location. Can you identify just on this plan where you anticipate putting the property address, the number? So it would be 215 East Kenny?
Yes. Adjacent to the entry door of the building, not the garage door, the entry door to the left.
And if we can, you indicated that signage, Beva Construction, which is the discussion here, that is in compliance with the city ordinance, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so the intent of this building is Pava, right, who is the construction owner. Would the board be amenable, Madam Chair, just if we put the name Pava and it would be the name of the building and just remove the word construction as an homage, because the gentleman who owns that building, his family who owns that building, and operated this business for 35 years in Newark and 15 in this location, passed during COVID as a result of it. And this family wants to rehab this building and have his name marked on there. So the intent of the sign is to name the building, and if we can remove the word construction and just keep the family name, we're happy to do that, to your point of at least identifying the building as the Pava building.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris, does that satisfy the questions that you had?
Yes.
Commissioner Sobrero?
Yes, I think Ms. Carrillo Perez answered one of my questions, which if there was a variance or anything on that, which there isn't. And I guess my other question is, I'm assuming the signage being where it is and in the front of the building also has to do with the fact that there's an office there or an executive suite. I assume, well, they'll be having meetings and things of that sort. So I'm assuming that's part of the reason why they have that signage there.
It is. We do need an identifier for the office building, and so that's the struggle we're having. So we'd like to keep it as Pava Construction because there is a business operating there.
Okay. Satisfies my question.
Ms. Perez, are you saying that the applicant would be okay with eliminating the word construction and keeping the family name on the building along with the street address?
Well, the problem, Madam Commissioner, might trigger another variance because we would need something to identify the building there. So the operator, right? So the business itself, the office, we would need a place to advertise that they actually operate there so that, it's a commercial area. So they're not in hiding. It is a public, essentially if someone needs to come in to make a delivery for the business, there should be an identifier. So part of the sign is to serve as that, which they're entitled to, and the sign conforms to it. I understand the board's concern with respect to, the name construction, but candidly, we're not before the board with any relief with respect to that. And, we are not even seeking variance relief with respect to that. So while I can understand and appreciate your concern, we do not have any requests here asking for a deviation on this. We are intending to comply. If you are asking us to then switch it, we will then be required to ask for a variance because there has to be an additional sign added somewhere on the building for this business to operate. And so that's the impasse we're at. So that's where I was suggesting, while we understand your sentiment, even though we're not asking for that relief, candidly, there will be an issue because this is a business. They've been operating there and they're going to continue to operate there. So I don't know if the board is willing to grant additional variances when we're not even seeking any here. That's the weight and the balance we're dealing with.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything at this time.
Thank you.
Right, Madam Chairwoman, I just have one more thing to clarify, just so it's on the record. And as Ms. Carrillo Perez mentioned, it is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is a de-escalation. So this is turning from from the testimony from the neighbors or the residents, that it is an active construction site or an active site where there are construction vans, being turned into an executive office with residential, therefore eliminating the construction vans and people that frequent the current property. Is that correct?
So the operations will remain the same. We are not going to have construction vehicles there. That's the only difference. The office operates, as I indicated, simply now 2 to 3 employees. There are construction trucks parked there because they have the garage. So that is the only portion that's being relocated. The business operations, the administrative offices have been there and they will remain there.
Correct, and that was my question in regards to the actual laborers that frequent there, which create an issue for the neighbors. So that's going away, but the executive offices or the operations will continue to be there.
Correct.
Therefore, meriting the signage on the building.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Any members of the public have questions for Mr. McDonough as it relates to his testimony?
If I may, just, I hope this is correct. This is the first time I think I've been to one of these meetings, and I feel like I don't have the language to keep up with some of the things that are going on, or being said. I wanted to know, I think that Mr. McDonough, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, you referred to that site on the corner of East Kinney and Pacific Street. That is going to be, I believe it is mixed use. I don't believe you were part of the planning. There is no parking associated with that site. If you go around East Kinney and Pacific, there's nothing for that building. So this is not really, I guess, a question, Ms. Chairwoman. But I want to indicate we are struggling. I'm sorry, Jennifer, Miss Perez. I don't have the words to.
It's okay. No.
I'm not used to this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not someone that litigates. I'm not somebody that, so I see you, waving and whatnot when I'm trying to speak. So I guess I'll reframe. Will we have customers coming to the site, this construction site? Is that correct, or Mr. McDonough? Will we have customers visiting this site?
No, Ms. Salerno, this is purely going to be administrative
Just
operations.
administrative. Okay, so
Yes.
will there be staff at that site? There will be at least 1 to 2 to 3 administrative staff at that site. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
And do
call it
they
back
park at
office
that site?
administration.
Do they park at that site, Mr. McDonough?
I don't know. The ordinance says there's no requirement for an office space of this size. I honestly don't know. I think we all know it's a walkable area. It's got good transit there. I don't know how the actual personnel get there, though.
Okay, and last question, I promise this question. Will there be any limits on the residents as to how many cars they will be bringing onto the site? Any limits for the residents in terms of parking limits associated with the 3 residences that are there?
I don't know if that's for me. That's the answer is no. There's not going to be a self-imposed limit in a lease.
Okay. There are no limits to that. Okay. I'm a homeowner. I have a resident upstairs.
Totally get it.
Lots of people live in the buildings around here in the units. So we have a lot of people that can be coming and living in these multi-room buildings.
Any other questions, Ms. Salerno?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Cabrera, you still have your hand raised. Do you have additional questions for Mr. McDonough?
I do not. I'm sorry. I just lowered it now. Thank you.
Any other questions for the planner? Ms. Perez?
I do not have any additional witnesses.
Do you want to do a closing statement?
Do you want to do public comment first? And
Yes. So members of the public, if you want to put a statement on, we'll invite you to raise your hand. You'll be sworn and you could put your statement on the record.
Yes, Ms. Salerno, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your address for the record.
My name is Elizabeth Salerno. My last name is spelled S as in Sam, Alerno. I live at 243 East Kinney Street, Newark, New Jersey, 07105.
You may proceed.
I just want it to be considered that our block is struggling with parking. It causes a lot of conflict here. I'm not opposed to the growth of the neighborhood, but I do want it to be considered by this group of people that make these decisions, that my quality of life is impacted. I have to get home by a certain time in order to park. If not, I do have to park several blocks over. It's something that needs to be considered now as we add more density to our blocks, the amount of people that are living here. So this is a 3-bedroom apartment. These are 3 units. They're 3 bedrooms. These are huge apartments for Newark. There are not very many 3-bedroom apartments in Newark. This is going to allow a lot of people to move in. And that spot that Mr. McDonough was talking about earlier, that I should have waited until this point in the conversation to bring up, that new building on the corner of East Kinney and Pacific Street. If you look at the front of it and the side of it, the Pacific side, the East Kinney side, there's no parking, and those are at least 2 residences. So you have to understand our concern as residents on this block, homeowners on this block, that traffic is a beast in Newark, especially in the Ironbound, and parking in as well. We're just asking you to consider that quality of life being impacted by not being able to park when you're a homeowner on this block. Thank you. That's all I need to add.
Thank you, Ms. Solano. Ms. Vega.
Yes, Ms. Vega, do
Yes.
you
Yes,
solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spell your last name, and state your address for the record.
Paula Vega, last name V as in Victor, EGA, and I live at 229 East Kinney.
You may
And as
proceed.
well, my concern is the same with the parking. As being a resident here and of all other residents that do live on the block, we do have a very hard time parking here. We have, I know you guys keep saying the dwelling on Pacific Street. We've got 3 up and coming buildings. It's not the only one. We have another one a block over on Oliver and Pacific, and we have another one on Jefferson. That's in Jefferson and East Kinney, next to Nastos. I understand they do have parking, but I also understand that they're only giving 1 to an apartment. Now that's a big resident there. And they already don't have parking. With that building, they're not even up and running. None of these buildings are up and running, and we don't have parking now. I understand you're trying to better, and I'm all for that. I don't have a problem with that. I love that everything is trying to get better and looking better, and property-wise, it's helping our properties. That we don't have a problem with. But the parking is a problem, especially that every time another building goes up, we lose another parking space on top of more people. And that's just my main concern right now.
Thank you, Ms. Vega. There's a hand raised in the wait room. Vic Ribeiro.
Yes, you have to accept the invitation to be brought in as a panelist. Person by the Vic Rivero declined.
All right, so I don't see another hand for,
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
oh, there you go.
My
Yeah.
apologies. I was in as an attendee. I didn't want to come in as a panelist. I'm sorry.
So your name and address, Mr. Ribeiro,
I'm sorry. My name is Victor Ribeiro.
and you
And
have
I'm-
a statement for, as it relates
Yeah.
to the application?
Yes. You know, I was born and raised in Newark. And you know, happy to see the community evolving and developing. You know, I'm for the project. I think it'll help out the area. I hear the concerns of my fellow community members. I think those concerns have to be diverted towards, you know, code enforcement, where if these apartments have additional people and there's 5 or 6 people living in a 3-bedroom, I think those are concerns that we need to bring up in a different light, maybe with parking, residential parking permits, or having the city enforce, you know, tenant, you know, leases for the landlords. I think the landlords are the ones that need to be held accountable for having an apartment with 7, 8, 9 people. However, the concerns are justifiable with the parking. However, for this specific instance and for this specific, you know, meeting, you know, I'm for the project. I'm for small businesses. You know, I think most of the employees probably live in Newark, probably if it's a small business like that. So I'm for it if it matters, my 2 cents. And, you know, God bless all of you guys, and, you know, good luck to the panel and everyone applying and all the community members.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ribeiro. Ms. Perez, do you want to put we'll close the evidentiary record at this time, if you want to put your closing statement on the record.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And I'm pleased to be the first application heard by the board. I want to thank you for your time and your attention to this matter, and the community members as well who came out. We submit, based on the application and the documents that were presented and filed with the city, as well as the testimony that you heard this evening, that this project makes sense for this area. You've heard the testimony of our architect and our planner. The operation of the business is there. They will continue to operate, and we are supporting a local business from Newark. They are looking to provide a project that will come more in line with what the neighborhood is, which is residential. They are providing three-bedroom units, which is, Mr. Lerno indicated, is rare for the city of Newark as large units to provide housing. And we all know that Newark right now is looking for additional housing and quality housing. While we understand the concerns of the community with respect to parking, this project is offering not only 3, but 4 parking spaces, 1 additional for an employee. And so I submit that what you've heard with respect to our professionals and the documents you've seen warrant your support and approval of this application. Again, we are seeking variance relief mostly because of the pre-existing conditions of the building. They're looking to enhance it and bring it closer in line to what is in that area. And we are providing more than ample parking. And so with that, I submit and I thank you for your support.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. This is a time where the board will go into discussion as it relates to this application. May I have discussion, please? Commissioner Hurd?
Yes, good evening. Prior to hearing Mr. Fernandez's presentation, I was concerned about trees. I know that the iron-bound area is densely populated, that the homes are close together. And so my concern was regarding trees. I know that he said that there was a tree being planted. I was also concerned about flooding, but I understand that the building is already there and you're building up. So my concern regarding flooding remains, but the building is already there. I would like to see an additional tree if they can, but since they are not a corner lot, I am pleased that they are at least attempting to plant a tree in the front of the building. And also, since the building is there, with buildings being close together, one has to be concerned about the impact of a fire on neighboring properties, but the building is also concrete and brick, and so my concerns in that regard are diminished because of the pre-existing conditions of the building and the way buildings were built subsequent to that building having been there. So I'm glad that they are at least considering or have made arrangements to have a tree planted there.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, as being a resident here in the Ironbound and listening to the project, I understand the concerns. But in terms of the variances that are stated or that we reviewed, I mean, the residents didn't have any objections to it, and I think the good far outweigh the negative. I mean, it is modernizing the building. If anybody's seen it prior, I'm not sure if they showed it, but I had seen it, and it is modernizing it. It is making the neighborhood better. They are providing the parking. So in that aspect, I think the good outweighs the bad on this project.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Childs.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my concern initially was the interruption of quality of life for the residents with having an office space on the second floor, with traffic going back and forth, with outside vendors maybe coming in or business meetings or the owner's employees. But they brought to my attention with the planner that it will only be 2 to 3 employees there, with one of the employees being the owner that would come there at the end of the day and the other 2 employees. So that was my issue, but they made it clear that it will only be 2 employees there, 2 to 3. So it would not be a lot of traffic going in and out, which can be a security concern for the residents with you having multiple strangers coming in and out the building that they do not know of, especially if it's past working hours of 9 to 5. But they made it clear that it will only be 2 to 3 employees. So I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else?
I have a question,
Commissioner Santiago.
Santiago. Are the parking space, they gonna be included in the rent, or they be rented separate from the rent?
At this time, Mr. Santiago, I think we've gone through the phases of questions. We're just now going to discussion.
But my concern is that they don't rent it to the people who gonna live there, and they start using it for their trucks, construction trucks, as a parking space, you know?
Right, and that was a concern also, I'm sorry, but that was a concern, and one of the questions that I asked specifically was that if this was going to be used for any commercial vehicles, which they specifically denied and said that it was not. Because that was my initial concern, was that they might try to use it for their construction vehicles, which then would create a bigger problem because of other cars parking there to pick up the vans, leave the vans, and so on and so forth. But they specifically said that it would not.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, while we can't require additional parking, I would just urge, if possible, to possibly consider doing an angled parking. I believe that you could probably squeeze out more than 4 parking spaces in this area if you do like a 45-degree angle parking, and just listen to the concerns of the residents in the area.
Commissioner, I think because we closed the record and all the testimony was presented, I think this is just a time now just for discussion. I think we've exhausted that point with the parking. We have the applicant here, but at this time it is really just for the board to kind of talk about their feelings on the application. Anybody else? Okay, I want to thank the applicant for coming on and putting on their case. I want to also thank the members of the public who showed up and asked questions. The applicant has agreed to remove commercial vehicles, which we will not have those commercial vehicles parked. I think this is a great application. The unit sizes are great for the city. I compliment the applicant for the design of the building. They're going straight up. The building is not shifting left or right. It is what it is. It's just going straight up. They're not seeking a height variance at this time. And so I would urge the board to approve it. So may I have a motion? May I have a motion, please?
A motion to pass.
Just a motion to approve or disapprove.
Commissioner Harris, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
I second.
And the second by Commissioner Hurd, or is that Harris?
I think that was Hurd.
Thank you. You call the roll, please.
Is that with conditions?
With the conditions listed on the record. Thank you.
Member Santiago.
I'm for it. Approved.
Commissioner Sobrero.
I'm for it, approved.
Commissioner Pichardo.
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd.
I approve.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs.
I approve.
Chair Coombs Hollis.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Perez, your application is approved. Yes,
Do we
subject
have to vote on the site plan?
Plan, correct.
to approval. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Platter.
Yeah.
We need a motion for site plan approval. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
A second to approve.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yes.
Commissioner Sobrero.
Yes.
Commissioner Pichardo.
Sorry, yes.
Commissioner Hurd.
Approve.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs.
Yes.
Chair Coombs Hollis.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Perez.
Thank you.
Before we call the next matter, I think there was a hand raised in the weight room with, is,
Mr. Gerard Crowder.
my apologies, the hand was raised early and I missed it. Mr. Crowder, how are you?
Yes, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. So Madam Chair, certainly thank you for indulging my request to address this board and the viewing public at this time. There's a possibility that I may not be able to remain, and so certainly thank you for indulging me. It's probably best that I'm speaking now because I can, at this point, congratulate you on your very first application. So congrats to you as a board. I'm Gerard Crowder, Assistant Director of Department of Economic and Housing Development here at the city, the department that oversees the Division of Planning and Zoning, which provides support to this board, the zoning board, and the other boards. It is on behalf of our mayor, Rajay Baraka, and also our deputy mayor, Allison Ladd of the Department of Economic and Housing Development. I certainly want to congratulate and welcome the new chair, the new vice chair, and each and every one of you board members. Thank you for your commitment and for carrying out this important work and for your service. Just very quickly, as a former chair of the Newark Central Planning Board some years ago, it's certainly an exciting time this is the first time we've activated a second board. And it's not lost on me that this is the time of the year when many are winding down and vacationing, that you all are having your inaugural meeting. So it certainly speaks to your commitment to the city's development needs. Please know that your appointment, I think, is proof positive of two things. The first one is our city continues to grow no matter the challenges, right? The city has been through a lot, yet we continue to develop and grow. And the second thing is, our leadership is really committed to helping the city meet its needs, its growing needs in an equitable way. We talk about equitable development. So that applications large and small have the opportunity to contribute to the city's landscape. And so with that said, and with applicants and the community eagerly and patiently waiting to discuss the next application, again, just welcome once again. I respectfully yield back to the chair, and again, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Crowder. Appreciate the sentiments. Ms. Mejia, can you call the next matter that's scheduled for this evening?
Yes. The time is now 7:53 p.m. The next item on tonight's agenda is ZBA-23-68, located at 68 Brunswick Street, Block 2818, Lot 29 in the East Ward. The applicant is Alexander Ron for 68 Brunswick LLC. In the R4 zone, the applicant proposes the conversion of a one-family into a two-family home. Applicant is seeking C variances for insufficient lot width and insufficient off-street parking. Site plan approval is not required. This application was previously adjourned on July 11th, 2024.
Thank you. The Board of Adjustment made the following findings of fact with respect to 68 Brunswick Street, which is located in Newark's Lincoln Park on the southern side of Brunswick Street between Parkhurst and Morris Streets. The total site area is approximately 2,890 square feet. The surrounding land uses consist of detached dwellings, a garden apartment complex, and a vacant parcel. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Higgins of Castano, Quigley, and Cerami on behalf of the applicant, 68 Brunswick LLC. I believe Sylvia mentioned this a minute ago. It may have cut out when I was being promoted, but we did notice previous to the last meeting, and our application was carried, and we carried it with preservation of notice to the present hearing. So with that said, this is for 68 Brunswick Street. It's block 2818, lot 29. It's located in the R4 multifamily zone. And what we're seeking to do here is convert the existing currently vacant single-family residence into a two-family building. To do that, we need two variances. Those include C variances for off-street parking, where two spaces are required, none are proposed. That's an existing condition with the building, and there's really, as you'll see during our presentation, no place for us to accommodate that parking. And the second variance was noted in the zoning officer's memo, which is a variance for insufficient lot width, where we're slightly under the 25 feet that are required. There is no site plan approval required as part of this application, and there are no D variances as part of this application. So with that said, I have two witnesses this evening. The first is our architect. I see him here, Steve Kowalek, and the second will be Kristen Russell as our planner. I don't see her up here.
You just promote her from the weight room, Ms. Mejia.
Yes.
Is there any members of the public who are here in support of or objection to this application? You can raise your hand at this time. If you're here in support of or in objection to, you can raise your hand at this time. All right, I see none. Mr. Higgins, you can proceed.
Great. So during our presentation, we will attempt to cover everything, but if any members of the board have any concerns, any questions, you believe that anything is not clear, please feel free to interrupt, ask those questions and let us know. So with that, I would like to have our architect sworn in, Steve Kowalek, as our first witness.
Mr. Kowalek, can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Stephen Kowalek, K-A-W-A-L-E-K. I'm the architect for the project.
Counsel, you may qualify your witness.
Okay, Mr. Kowalek, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, I am.
Your license is current this evening?
It is.
Would you mind briefly describing your education to the board?
I have BAs and MA from New York University. I have a Master's of Architecture from NJIT. Graduated there in 2000. And have been part of a family practice since 2001. My father started the firm back in 1976. So he's been the biggest chunk of my education. But as far as the formal stuff goes, is what I mentioned earlier. And in addition to being licensed in New Jersey, I'm licensed in 3 other states. All those licenses are also in good standing.
Great. And how long have you been practicing as an architect, Mr. Kowalek?
I've been in the field since 2001. I've been licensed in New Jersey since 2005.
Great. And you've presented before any planning or zoning boards in the past. Would you briefly name a few of them with the board's knowledge?
Many times. My office is located in Bayonne, so I've been in front of Bayonne's boards the most. Also Jersey City, Hoboken, places as in Essex County, East Orange, Elizabeth, places like Red Bank and further afield than that, Parsippany, all over the place.
Great. Last thing I forgot to ask, but I think it's important, Mr. Kowalek, you did prepare the plans that you're going to present this evening, right?
I did, yes.
Okay, I'd move to have Mr. Kowalek accepted as a licensed professional architect.
Thank you. Any objections from the board? I see none. Ms. Higgins, so you have a copy of the planner's memo dated July 2nd, 2024?
I do.
All right, great. Thank you. You can proceed.
Okay, Steve, could you please share your screen and present the plans, situate the board with the site that we're talking about, and then describe what improvements we are making to the property.
Okay, can everyone see that?
It's a little bit small for me.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to show the full sheet to start off with. Forgive me, I'm a little hoarse tonight. So just to get us situated, this is 68 Brunswick Street. It's in the R4 zone. The lot is 24 by 120 feet, roughly 2,890 square feet in size. as you just heard, we're looking to convert from a single family to a two-family. That's a permitted use in the zone. And on the first sheet of our drawing set, we do have a zoning tabulation which shows that the project is almost entirely compliant with relevant criteria. There are only one or two variances which the planner will be addressing later in our presentation. Just to walk you through the site.
I'm sorry, can you zoom in on that, the survey that you do have on the screen? It's really hard to see.
Sure. It's a deep site, so you know I can only show it a piece at a time. So this is the front of the property. Okay. That's our radius plan, just to give us a sense of the surrounding area. So the existing dwelling sits right at the front of the property. We've got only an 11-inch setback on one side, 2'9" on the other side. Really no front yard. We do have a very deep rear yard. So you can see here starting, this is the back of the house. And from there all the way back to here is the rear yard. There's existing fencing all around. There's existing mature trees and shrubs. We have an existing concrete barbecue structure against the rear of the house. We have some steps down, a concrete patio, and an area for trash and recycling to be stored. We're not really we're not proposing any site work or changes to the site or exterior of the house itself, other than replacement of windows. If I can skip ahead to the sheet with our elevations, I'll just run past the plans here. I'm going to back these out a little bit. That's our front elevation. That's one side. And that's our rear and the other side. And again, those are going to remain proposed to remain as is, with the exception of replacing of existing windows. So existing siding will remain. We've got aluminum fascia and capping that's proposed to remain. There's a covering over the rear stoop, which is proposed to remain. Again, no changes to the exterior beyond what I just mentioned.
And Steve, just to clarify, the existing siding is in good condition.
It is in good condition, yes. This is not like you know, sort of a rundown structure. It's in generally good repair. Really doesn't need the you know, any level of exterior improvements. The applicant is looking to replace windows for the sake of energy efficiency and modernization. And that goes along with the interior project, which I can describe now. The house itself is 3 stories plus a basement. Basement is unfinished. Basement will remain unfinished. No changes are proposed there. Ground floor is slightly larger than the upper 2 floors. So ground floor is about 695 square feet. The upper 2 floors about 650 each. Right now it's a one family triplex. So we have an entry hall into a stairwell, kitchen at the rear, living room and dining room, and that makes up our first floor. And then coming up to the second floor, 2 bedrooms, and a small office area and a bathroom. And then continuing up to the top floor, 2 more bedrooms, kind of an open family room and a bathroom inside. The interior I would describe as in serious need of modernization and upgrading. So the existing bathrooms are quite old. Most of the finishes are quite old. The kitchen is quite old. So the applicant is seeking to really reconfigure the space. The lines that you see as dashed here are lines, are walls that would be removed. The ones that are solid are walls that would remain. So there's a fairly extensive amount of interior reconfiguration required to achieve what we're looking to do. I'll move to the proposed plans to walk you through those. And essentially, what happens on the ground floor is we create a separate unit there, which is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom dwelling. The same what's now an interior portion of the entryway is going to become a covered exterior entryway, because the current building codes require that dwelling units maintain separate entrances to the exterior. So this gives us the opportunity to have an entry into the upper unit and an entry into the first floor unit, both of which have direct access to the exterior. So coming in off that small porch, we enter into a hallway, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and an open kitchen and living room in the rear. Again, that's about 650 square feet. The other entryway would take us into a small foyer up the stairs, existing stairs that will remain. And on the second floor, we land at an office area with a bathroom, 1 bedroom, kitchen and living room combination. And then above that, pretty similar to what's existing now, just with a little bit of reconfiguration. The family room in the center basically stays as it is. Bedroom at the front, bedroom at the rear, and the bathroom moves to this area over here. We're creating some walk-in closets, other closets in the other bedrooms where there's really not insufficient storage now. And this is really a full interior gut renovation. So as you can see, we're showing full electrical reconfiguration here. The house would be rewired, replumbed. So we're talking about modern code compliant electrical and plumbing upgrades, proper fire separations. Obviously we would have to bring the building completely up to code as far as the requirements that relate to a 2-family house of this kind. We don't anticipate needing to replace the existing water or sewer lines, which are adequate in size. We may wind up upgrading the electrical service to a 200 amp service. That would be done through the utility company. And that's really the extent of what we're contemplating.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins, do you have any follow-up for your architect?
So I just note again, Steve, so the exterior work is limited only to replacing windows. There's no demolition of the exterior walls. So it's fair to say this is mostly an interior renovation and conversion to the 2-family use, of course, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I have no questions for the architect, but I'm sure he's happy to address any questions the board has.
Does any member of the board have questions for the architect? I see the hand raised by Ms. Juma.
Evening, Nana Juma, zoning officer. I do have a question for the architect. I have a few questions. Is there a revision date for this version of the plans that you're showing us tonight?
Let's see. There's not one printed on the sheet.
Have you revised the plans since your last submission to the office? I'm asking because the version of the plans that we have on our Google Drive, or the one that I have saved to my records, doesn't show the basement floor plan where you show your electrical floor plans or proposed floor plans.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what the
I can jump in, actually. We submitted a set with a revision date of June 6th. Shortly after that date, that's the set that you're showing and presenting tonight, right?
Okay, yeah, for some reason, the dates aren't showing up on the PDF version here.
Mr.
I'm
Higgins,
sorry, you're saying that the plans were revised and dated June 6th, or that you submitted them on June 6th?
They were dated June 6th.
the plans that
They were
we,
submitted shortly after.
December 22nd, 2023.
Okay, so Secretary Mahia, can you just make note of that and confirm whether or not you have these plans? Otherwise, just to be safe, we'll mark them as A1 if that's okay with the board.
The one on the Google Drive are dated June 6th. June 6th, 2023.
Yeah, I guess me and Ms. Hollis must be looking at the same plans. But again, just for the record, what we're looking at, he's saying has been revised June 6th, so we'll mark them as A1. And the secretary will confirm whether or not we have these. But I do have an additional question for the architect. Can you scroll down to your elevations? Have you made any changes to the elevations versus the December plans that I've seen?
No, I don't believe so.
Is that a yes, no? You're the architect for the project. Did you revise the elevations since the determination I've made?
I believe, Steve, that the only change to the elevations is that you added a note, windows to be replaced. Is that correct? If my recollection is right.
That would have been the only change, yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, because nothing else, I mean, we're not changing anything else, so that would have been the only change if at all, yes.
Right. And to my recollection, the other changes are adding a basement plan and editing the zoning tabulation to make it a little bit clearer.
Correct.
I believe that's the extent of the changes. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the existing basement is unfinished and it's gonna remain unfinished is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hazel.
Yes, Gerard Hazel, board planner. I just wanted to, for the record, state that the plans that I used for my review were the plans dated on June 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Hazel. Are there any questions from the board for the architect? Ms. Harris, Commissioner Harris.
Good evening. Can you show me how to get to the third floor? I didn't quite see that.
So if basically the existing stairs aren't going to change, and it's a stacked stair configuration. So, you know, starting down here at the first floor, you've got a bottom of the stairs that lands here. You go around and you come up, and your stair from the second to the third is stacked right above that other one. You know, a very, very common kind of stair configuration in old or new houses. So you would be if you're on the second floor, you would be at the bottom of the stairs here, where it says existing up, and then you would land at the top at the third floor here.
Okay. And being that the basement is not going to be finished, isn't going to be mechanicals in there? Is nothing going to be in there?
Just mechanicals, right? So there, you know, the boilers and water heaters are down there, that kind of thing.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for the architect? I do have a question for you. As you're reconfiguring the interior spaces, was there consideration for laundry facilities for these units?
It wasn't something that my client discussed with me. I think generally because the basement is unfinished, so that provides some capacity for laundry, at least for the first floor unit. There's certainly room in the duplex to add it in. if that was something that the applicant wished to do, we could certainly carve out a space for a washer and dryer.
Well, for me, Mr. Kowalik, it's disappointing to see that this is going to be redone and there is no consideration for laundry facilities to be included. So it would be great if you were to consider adding the laundry facilities for the families.
I can certainly suggest that to the client. I'm sure he'd be happy to go along with that.
Yeah, we're happy to take note of that comment and run it by our client.
Thank you. Any other questions for the architect? I have a question, Mr. Higgins, Mr. Plata. Initially, I see that you're not here for site plan approval. However, your front steps and fence is encroaching in the city right away. Is there a way to address that?
I think the architect would be the best person to address that. Steve, is it true that to correct that encroachment, well, one, I think it's an existing condition, correct?
Yes.
And what are those steps made of? Brick?
Those are brick steps, right? It's a typical kind of brick, stoop where we've got 5 or 6 steps up to a small platform, and that ends right at the foundation of the building. There's just not room between. We have 3 feet 3 inches front setback. There's just not room in that space to get the number of steps that we would need to fit between the property line and the foundation of the building.
I'd also briefly note that it's an existing condition prior even to when the current owner purchased the property.
For sure, it was built this way.
I understand. And Mr. Plata, is there a need for the applicant to get some approval from the city for this encroachment into the right of way?
In the past, we used to require them to receive an easement from the city. But a couple years ago, we were advised, I think it was actually last year, we were advised by Mr. Trafficante that he was advised by Corporation Counsel that the city would no longer do that. And there was a memo put out. And I remember in that specific case, the Department of Engineering, after reviewing the plans, had decided that they understood it was not in compliance, but since it was pre-existing, they didn't object. I don't know if Mr. Trafficante, if he has any, if there's been any changes that he's aware of in terms of what the city's position is. At some point, there was also conversations about hold harmless agreements, but that also kind of, fell out of favor with the city also. So I'm not concerned it's not current to me what's acceptable from the city's perspective or from the Department of Engineering. I don't know if Mr. Trafficante is aware of any new policies.
I don't know if Mr. Trafficante is still here, but would the applicant agree to work with the city if in the event that there's additional approvals that you would need, you would secure that if this were approved?
We would definitely be happy to work with the city coordinating either an easement agreement or a hold harmless agreement or whatever the city prefers in order to deal with this encroachment.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Any other questions for the architect? Seeing none, Ms. Higgins? Other questions, Commissioner?
I would agree with the previous commissioner that discussed the need for laundry service on the property for the families. That is the only comment I have at this time.
Thank you. Your next witness, Mr. Higgins.
Great. So my second witness and final witness is Kristen Russell, a professional planner. If we could have her sworn in as well.
Ms. Russell, if you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Kristen Russell, Russell. I'm with Colliers Engineering and Design. I'm a professional planner. I've been practicing since 2002, and I've been licensed since 2005.
Counsel may qualify your witness.
Thank you. I believe Kristen beat me to part of that already, but Kristen, you are a licensed planner and your license is current, correct?
Correct.
Could you name a few boards that you've presented before in the past and give the board a brief taste of your professional experience?
Sure. I've presented to boards across the state, including Hoboken, Jersey City, Union Township, Mawa. I have held positions both as a consultant, a private consultant to boards, and on the public side, serving boards directly through municipal employment.
Okay. I'd move to have Ms. Russell accepted as a professional planner.
Thank you. Any objections from the board? Seeing none. You may proceed.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm here to present to you the variances associated with the subject application. We've noticed for two, the first being lot width and the second being parking. These would both be C1 variances, and that is based on the existing condition, meaning the lot is already there and the building is already there. So we need to pretty much work around those conditions. The lot width variance, which was actually identified by your zoning officer, is an existing 24-foot 1-inch width where 25 feet is required. That is existing, and we're not proposing any change to that. In terms of parking, your zoning code within the R4 zone requires 1 space per unit. We will have 2 units, therefore requiring 2 spaces, though I will note that there's already 1 unit. The existing structure houses 1 unit and it's already deficient by 1. So we're asking for 2 parking space variances, but 1 of them is already an existing condition. It is my opinion that these variances do advance the intents and purposes of the municipal land use law. For example, the variances will encourage action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state, which promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The development does not conflict with the general welfare of neighboring municipalities, the county, or the state. We are establishing appropriate population densities. We will provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses here, including residential. And we're creating a desirable visual environment. We're improving the block. There will be no substantial detriment to the public good through these variances. There's ample street parking. I went by to visit the site as well as other members of our team, and all of us observed that there was no shortage of parking on that street. This is partially because the opposite side of the street is actually the rear of the ShopRite, and so there's not a whole lot of traffic going on there. We're also, bringing the currently boarded up building into use. So the benefits of that, I would suggest, far outweigh any detriments of 1 or 2 parking spaces that will be on the public street. Again, as I mentioned, this is an existing home on an existing lot, and creating new parking on that lot would be all but impossible without demolishing the building. The variance will not, excuse me, the variance will not substantially impair the intent or the purpose of the master plan or the zoning ordinance. The master plan has a goal of ensuring housing security for Newark families, and we are, through the nature of this application, providing 2 new housing units. The master plan also has a goal of improving the quality of the building stock. So we are improving this existing building, bringing it up from a boarded up state into a usable and occupied home. The future land use map within your master plan identifies rezoning this site actually to the Lincoln Park South Gateway. That was drafted in 2019 and 2020, but it seems to have stalled in part to the COVID-19 pandemic. There were no other recommendations in the master plan related to this property. So in short, again, the existing lot width is a pre-existing condition, though it is short by the required width by 11 inches. And the parking, we are short 2 spaces. But due to the nature of the lot, which is to say the lot exists and the house is already on the lot, there's really no way to provide that on site, which is why we need the variances to allow on-street parking. That concludes my testimony. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Ms. Russell, I did see in Mr. Hazel's report that there is a variance required for a shade tree. Can you address that?
I believe that would be a deviation, but in either case, may I ask the architect if there is sufficient space on the block to incorporate a street tree?
I would say not directly in front of the property, but elsewhere on the block there would be.
I think, excuse me, but this was it's not a variance, it is a deviation, but it was listed in the planner's memo as a condition of approval. I don't believe that we have room to accommodate a street tree as the architect just testified. But again, we'd be happy to coordinate with the city. And if we can accommodate one, we will do so. And if not, we will provide payment in lieu as is required by the ordinance.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for the planner? Mr. Hazel?
Yes, just for the sake of clarity, the citation for the shade tree is in fact a variance pursuant to section 41-16-2-2. It is required as part of the it is listed in the ordinance as a variance. So I just want to make that clarify that on the record.
Thank you. Ms. Russell, maybe you should supplement your testimony as it relates to the shade tree.
Well, sure, I can certainly do that now. Considering the shade tree as a variance, I would suggest that we are willing to install a shade tree if possible on the lot, and if not, we would be happy to provide one on the block or provide funding to put one in a location of the city's choice. We understand the need for tree cover in Newark and anywhere as a best practice. And unfortunately, there are times when properties are encumbered by utilities or existing conditions that prevent that from happening. We would like to adhere to the spirit of the zoning requirements, whether or not that is within the specific lot footprint. May not be possible, but we would be happy to accommodate it, to contribute that tree in another place that you choose if necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. I think the city would encourage you to plant your tree on site, but I understand the restrictions that you have, especially because you are already encroaching into the right of way. But you'll work with the city arborist to identify that location.
We will.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins?
I'd also briefly like to note on that last point too, my interpretation, which I could be incorrect on, is that by providing payment in lieu, we would be complying with the ordinance. However, if the city, as it appears that you all agree on that we do need a variance for that, I have included catch-all language in our notice. So effectively, anyone who received a notice this evening for this hearing was notified of the potential that there could be additional variances that weren't specifically listed. So I do believe that was protected by the notice. With that, is it up to me just to close now, or were there further questions for Ms. Russell?
Any questions from the board for the planner's testimony? Questions from the public? I heard, did you have a question?
I'd just like for Ms. Russell to restate her plan and or possibilities for a tree in that area, just to clarify.
Sure. What I would suggest is that our first choice will be to accommodate a tree on the site. It is possible that cannot be done due to existing constraints such as utilities and the existing, configuration. If in fact that is not possible to put that tree on the site, we will work with the Newark's arborist and ask if they would like us to put a tree elsewhere or more likely contribute funds for a tree to be placed elsewhere. But it will be our first goal to have that tree on site, if at all possible.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hurd?
Yes, thank you. I would also like to state that the New Jersey Tree Foundation does provide or does have information regarding trees that are specific to cities regarding height and things of that nature that would impact housing, sidewalks, and wiring for electricity and communications.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for the planner? Do we have any questions from the public for the planner? You could raise your hand at this time. I see none. Any statements from the public? See none, Mr. Higgins?
Great. So that concludes our presentation. I do think that this is one of those projects where, again, the good outweighs the bad. We're making some code improvements to the existing building and providing housing where currently there's a vacant building and there is none. Most of the variances that you've heard this evening in our architects and our planners' testimony are existing conditions. There's an existing lot, there's an existing building, so it would be difficult to rectify those conditions. So with that, I think that concludes our application and our presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. We're now in discussion. Do we have discussion from the board members at this time? Commissioner Guerrero.
I just, my opinion, it's a pretty straightforward. I mean, it's an existing structure, so there's not a lot that can be done if they were to maintain it. So the variance, as they stated, for parking is existing already on one spot, but I do know the area a little bit, and there is no constraints or issues with parking there. And then with the variance as opposed to the lot width, less than a foot, I don't really see it as detrimental. And they are taking a dilapidated building and improving that neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else?
Yes, Vice Chair. In the area on that street particular for 7 years, and my parents, they live on the same block, so there's no issue with parking. And I think with this housing structure, it would be good for that block, which is needed because it is an eyesore for their own community. So have no issues with parking, plenty of parking, especially on the opposite side of the street.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Harris?
Just want to say that this is, like we all, like my fellow colleague said, this is going to be great. I do want to just make sure that the applicant considers the washer and dryer either in the units or in the basement, because that is a plus. I think that, you know, being that you guys are doing a renovation, you might as well go ahead and add that. But I am in support of the application.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does anybody want to make a motion? Can we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second that motion.
And that is with the condition of the curing the encroachment of the right-of-way laundry facility and the shade tree.
Yes.
That would be motion to approve ZBA 23-68. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, thank you. You call the roll, please.
Commissioner Santiago, Commissioner Sobrero,
Yes.
Commissioner Pichardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs,
Yes.
Chair Coombs Hollis.
Yes, congratulations. Your application is approved with the conditions as listed on the record.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Ms. Mejia, Mr. Plata, Mr. Hazel, I don't believe the board has anything else for this evening, correct?
Correct.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's okay, great. So that concludes our meeting for tonight. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Somebody can say anything when they're going.